we're seeing more companies saying, hey, CEOs are saying we need our people to have more of our culture. We need to have these people tighter in, and they're seeing like they understand their own problems in mid-size and
Hey guys, it's the Deej, and do I got something special for you today? Just when you think your day can't get any better, here comes Kevin Downey. He'll teach you not only how to get more customers, but how you can get your salespeople to get more customers, how you know when to hire them, and how you know when to fire them. And he's just a darn good guy. So please help me welcome my friend, Kevin Downey. Here he is.
Recording. I didn't know. Wait. Stop. Start over.
It's okay. We will start over.
Okay.
We could do the intro at the end.
Okay.
Doesn't matter. We had you screwed the whole thing up with the gray wave. I actually met somebody this week, and I showed him an old picture or something because my son was on it. It was his birthday or whatever. And the guy said to me, "You used to have blonde hair?" And I'm like, I look in the mirror. I still see a guy with blonde hair. I do. I don't know what's going on, dude. So he said, yeah. And like the people that knew me, like I have a good friend who says, yes, yeah, it's still blonde. So I guess you kind of see what you used to see, unless you don't see me in a long time. And then it's white. I actually look in the mirror and I totally see my father. Has that happened to you yet?
Well, I'm adopted, so no.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my God. Did you ever have the urge to seek out and find your birth parents? I don't think I would.
No, other than I do know the background. I mean, obviously I was like an oops, but like I know the background and we know the lineage. And I did 23andMe, so I know that it was actually my mom, what she got from the hospital and the details from the lawyer actually was accurate. Because I was adopted before I was even born. To be truthful, my parents had adopted somebody before me. He died of crib death at like 3 months old. So I was not only an oops, but I was a replacement. I was like a warranty replacement.
That is great. That's a great story. I love that. You know, one time, several years ago, my sister got me a present for one of the holidays, a 23andMe, one of those things. And I just like emotionally just couldn't do it. Like I didn't really know why, but I'm scared to do it. I didn't want to know it.
My friends that are Jewish anyway, like they all have the same lineage of Czech, Prussia, Polish, something like there, pretty much.
Yeah, I don't know if I wanted to find out that or just other. Listen, a lot of crazy stuff happened in the wars and all that, and so I just didn't want to. Whatever it was.
So you'd be mad if you found out you were Irish? Is that what you're telling me?
Well, I'm the only one. We started this with blonde hair. The only person that I knew growing up that had blonde hair was the mailman. I mean, there was no. I had no. Yeah, everybody else is dark brown. But so I just recently I had a good friend whose son got a phone call from his old next door neighbor, a girl that he used to date, and apparently she had done 23andMe and found out that they were related.
Oh, jeez.
Yes, and so it was a whole. Now his dad has died already and all that stuff, but apparently he and the neighbor's mom were, a little closer than fixing the refrigerator.
Evidently.
Yeah. So that's what. I heard that story and I said to myself, it was a good idea not to get the 23.
Yeah. No, for me there was no risk in it. I mean, everything that they knew, including Mongolian mark. Because I'm very like 1% Yakut. You know what Yakut is?
It sounds something Russian. It sounds something in like Siberian, some Eskimo-ish.
Exactly right. Exactly right. It's from I forget what country, but specifically that part around or a region of Russia.
Yeah, very interesting. I think I read years ago because I was interested in the American Indians during World War II they had their own language, and apparently people up in Siberia, it must be that Yakuts people had their own language too, so they had their own little secret way of passing.
I think there's probably a lot of them. I mean, I think like Chinese, I think there's obviously there's like 1,000 variations of Chinese. So
yeah, we have apparently in my family, my wife and myself and my kids, I think I make up words and just all this stuff because my daughter's boyfriend had come for a couple of Christmases and New Year's and Thanksgivings types of dinners and things, and we're there and we're talking, just joking around. And this year he looked at us and he goes, I got to tell you guys, I've been around you for like 2.5, 3 years. He goes, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. He goes, you guys just have all these words, they don't mean anything.
Is it some of it coming from Yiddish? Is some of it old school like Yiddish?
I don't know. We just make stuff
when you were
up.
growing up.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's when my dad was growing up, that's all they spoke in the house was Yiddish.
Really?
Yeah. So he was brought up in France, but his parents obviously came from either Poland or Russia or Prussia or whatever you were saying earlier. Yeah. And they finally got there, and so they didn't want to have to keep learning new languages, and so they stuck with one, and they did that. But so my dad could speak, all kids, they spoke French, Yiddish, and then English. Everybody had to learn English, and so we'll be able to do that.
My wife's side, one side of the family, her dad's side, he grew up and they spoke Norwegian in the house a lot. So the parents, her grandparents, they spoke Norwegian, which is kind of weird.
That's a tough language. Those very difficult.
Yeah. All the Nordic ones are tricky.
Anyhow, this is the type of inside information. Now that I know that you're adopted, if I was like marketing to you, I would totally be all over the adoption angle, and just playing it, just working the thing. But that's how. Listen, people say that cold emails don't work, but if you're really targeting close a specific market that you want, and you're just going for the people, the more information like that can totally improve your odds for a continued conversation.
Yeah, I mean, assuming you get deliverability, it does. I mean, if you're doing short run stuff and you're doing really niche stuff like that, the more information you have, the better. And then of course there's the volume play, which is more, what I do a lot and what I do for clients. But they're both effective at the end of the day. I mean, it's still B2B. It's still the easiest way to cold call. Send them an email.
Yeah, that's right. And go there, and it's the written word. Most powerful thing in the universe, the written word. The difference between a dollar bill and a $10,000 bill is simply the words that are on the front of it.
That's exactly true.
Right. It's okay. Exactly so right. We spoke the other day, and you said something remarkably interesting to me about the new wave of employee-employer relationship in regards to sales. Do you remember what that was?
Which one were we talking? I mean, like, as far as I'm trying to remember.
It used to be that the employee or the employer was in total control.
Oh, the last time we spoke about it. Yeah.
Yes. And then the employee is like in total control. And now we got to figure out a way to get these people start working again, because this whole remote thing is challenging to some and good for some, and you don't know for whom. How do these places hire people these days now?
Right now, so I was talking about this with one of my clients that we were discussing, because he's a consultant. It is the leverage from the job seeker side is so much in demand for remote, 100% remote. They, as a whole, they want to work from home, and they want
the job seeker,
the employee. And the employers are definitely pushing back on it. So I have a lot more interest, and we get a lot more work for, remote covering territories with travel. I get a lot of that in sales, but still overall employee is local, even if it doesn't need to be. I'm getting more and more want to hire local. The job could be hybrid. The job could even be remote, but they want the person within arm's reach so they can come into the office for meetings, for culture stuff, for team building, for events, yada, yada, all that stuff. That is the demand from the employer side. So they are at odds with one another.
All right. So how does that get resolved?
I think eventually, the employee is the one that's going to have to bend, because they're the one that needs the check. I don't see how they're going to work. I just don't see how they're going to battle it I mean, certainly you have the talk online, and I don't follow this stuff a lot, but employee rights groups and hey, if they want to work remote, they should be able to work remote. At the end of the day, they're not writing the check. So to me,
Yeah.
the employer gets to dictate, like they get to dictate it at the end of the day. Like,
Yeah. And you know what? I think employers, I'll speak as the small business guy. I've owned several businesses, retail,
right,
manufacturing, service, that whole thing. What a lot of consumers, and I'm looking at the employee as a consumer right now,
correct.
don't realize is that the employer gets screwed all the time. I mean, it's always much easier when someone comes in and says, "Hey, dude, this didn't work. I don't want to." All right, here's your money back. Give me the thing. See you later, potato. And we walk. It's easier to do that than to fight it. Many times, the business owner just gets screwed. When I had a staffing company,
Yeah,
somebody wouldn't show up, they wouldn't work, whatever. The company didn't pay him for the last few hours. All right, no problem. Here, it came out of mine, so I would pay. It's constantly happening to owners, so they're kind of used to that. And I say that because they kind of understand if somebody wants to work remote all the time, we know you're probably working remote for somebody else also. Like
there is a little
yes.
black market or thing discussion that is happening for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, I think what should happen is the employer, knowing this, just needs to put people on 1099 and say that's fine. Work it part-time. Get paid on your merit.
I mean, I don't have as much a strong of opinion. I look at it as more supply and demand, and the market will take care of itself. I mean, at the end of the day, if the employer wants to hire local and they want the person in the office, they're eventually going to hire local and have the people coming into the office. Like, I think there's a socio-political rabbit hole this conversation could go down, which I don't really want to do. I think like there's a lot of, you hear a little bit of talk of the employee rights and activists saying, well, employees should get to do this and get to do that, and they should get more of the profit and companies make all the money. But the reality is I always look at it and say, okay, I mean, I pay my people guaranteed money, right? Of course, and I'm a boutique agency, but I look at it as, if you want all of the profit, where were you when we started the business and we lost money for 6 months or a year, right? Like, are you willing to work for free in a startup company until it gains revenue or profitability? Like that's why I'm saying then you get part of the company. I have no problem with that. If you'll come in and work for free until we reach profitability, okay, or till we get revenue, sure, I have no problem with that.
That's why I say that the employees should be 1099. Have your own little business, but companies want to hire W-2 for whatever reason.
Well, no, I mean, I think that certainly the small guys are hiring contractors for sure more, but I think that the bigger mid-size, mid-market, and enterprise are just afraid of the legal ramifications of it. I mean, I think that there's still the whole full-time employees, and again, they need full-time employees in a lot of those companies, or most, but I think there's still the ramification in the fear of litigation and all that stuff. But on that note, I agree with you on the sense that if you want to, like, you're a W-2 employee and I want to recruit people, that are local, I have like that right. And you can't, as an employee, you can't dictate whether or not you get to come into the office, you're hybrid or you're remote. That's up to the people writing your paycheck, giving you your benefits, and all of that stuff. If you're a W-2 employee, I agree with you on the whole thing. Like, if you're really demanding of being of being remote, if performance is not there, okay, then maybe we go to 1099 and we just cut you to part-time or whatever. I don't.
See you later.
I think it's a complicated. There's a lot of things that go into that conversation, obviously. So,
okay, all right. Anyway. So, what did you want to talk about?
Well, I think that there was a couple of things. The one thing I brought up as a topic I wanted your take on first, and I have one subject that I want to, lead in on the conversation. But I hear this from people when recruiting for sales. I get requests for commission-only sales reps still, right? Which I'm not a fan of, and I'm not a believer in, because at the end of the day, there's no way that wins for the employer. It's a waste of time, and for the job seeker, it's a waste of their time ultimately. Like, in my opinion, it just takes too long. But a lot of them come to me, and part of the conversation is they're looking for someone with a quote unquote book of business because they believe that their industry is special,
Right.
and therefore you have to have a relationship in order to make a sale.
Right.
I want your take on that. I'll give you mine, but I want your take first.
Okay. That I love when I get that, because I know that business. It's almost like when someone tells me that they get all their business from referrals. It basically tells me they don't get much business. You ask somebody how much business how do you get your business? Oh, all through referrals. You don't get much new business. That's someone who doesn't market. So when they say that we want someone with a book of business, it means they don't know how to market, or they've tried marketing in the past and it hasn't worked, or they're just not marketing. That's what they need to do. What they need to do is generate lead flow. Then they can hire somebody to work these things. But their emphasis on finding the perfect person with that book of business already is a short-term, almost no-win situation. There is occasionally the perfect situation that happens.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend of mine who helped this company go public, got really big, got him worked several really large accounts, logo accounts, the type of accounts that, like Gap is a logo, Apple is a logo.
Yeah.
So a logo account. And he brought them to an area where they would go to public, didn't really need him anymore. He was a big salary. But so, they said, let's cut our ties, which was fine, but he still had all the relationships with those logos. Okay. So he marketed himself as, I got 7 big name companies that I have top-notch relationship with, and people bought him for that. At a time where, you were of an age that nobody would hire you, he did very well for himself, because that's what he's selling.
Agree,
so
100%. Agree 100% that it's a very rare exception. It exists, but it's a very I get
it's going to cost you. You tell them that's fine. It'll cost you $500,000, and you'll get that person.
Okay. No, I get what you're saying. Go back to the question though, because philosophically speaking, what is relationship in sales? So in other words, when a company says our business, our industry is really relationship driven.
Yeah.
So avoiding the commission only sales thing. So talk about relationship in sales, because I know where I think I know where you're going to go and what you're going to say, but I want to hear you say, what does relationship mean in sales for new customer acquisition and existing customer sales?
Well, I don't want to make this too long, so I'll shorten it. First thing, here's my belief, my constant belief, in the one that keeps me waking up in the morning. Mm-hmm. If you're not growing, you're shrinking. If you're not climbing, you're sliding. There's no in between. You're never all set. So if you're relying on your past relationships, you're already sliding down the hill. So your relationships needs to start before they even know you. So your job, if you're a true salesperson or a marketer or brander or whatever you are, is to be constantly putting yourself out there. It's too easy now not to do it. Be omnipresent on several different platforms so people get to know you before you know them. Then when the reach out happens or the introduction happens, you're already have built that relationship. Relationship is letting people know who you are more often, louder than the next guy.
Okay. So
and then living up to that brand by your consistent, regular service and actions.
Okay. Think about it from a little different direction though, because you partly answered it, and that was good stuff. Think about it from the standpoint, if you're a company and you've got salespeople, do buyers buy because of the salesperson, or do they buy because it comes down to trust to me, right? So relationship means trust. So do they trust you in presenting the products and services, and that those fit a problem or need, or are they going to buy because of their relationship with you personally, regardless of the products and services. And I think that gets very conflated out there by people.
I follow the Zig Ziglar rule of saying the most important part of the sale is the salesperson. And so I think the company, listen, there are four beliefs. There are four beliefs that one must have to be a good salesperson. The belief in your company, belief in your product, belief in yourself, and then the overriding belief that your customer or your prospect is better off buying that product or service from you, from your company, than from anybody else. Like the sweetener, the extra ingredient on top, the thing that calms the waters is you as that salesperson. No, ultimately, I've had many people that bought the products from me because of me, and I think that's the main thing, that the training and development of the salesperson is your quickest road to success in your business.
Assuming, okay, you're going on the premise, though, that the person, that your prospect has a need or an interest in your products or services. In other words, your products or services solve a problem.
Well, yeah, I mean, you got to start there. You ask about the salesperson, but listen, to make a sale, it's three things that you have to have. You have to have a need or desire. You have to have decision-making ability, and you have to have money. If the salesperson qualifies you for those three things, you're there. If you have one of those things missing, you don't have a sale. If someone has the money and the decision-making ability, but doesn't want the darn thing, you're not going to manipulate somebody.
Agree. I mean, I guess the only thing I look at it as, and you kind of got there, is that for me, it's like the more commodity your product or service is, the more important the salesperson is in gaining the sale and maintaining the relationship. Because if three things, if like all different companies offer janitorial products and service products, let's say, and you're a janitorial product distributor, the salesperson makes all the difference in the world because of that relationship. Or let's say the customer service rep or the account manager, whatever, whomever it is that works with that customer. But the more unique your products or services are in the marketplace, the less the salesperson is important, and the more how different your products or services are in relative to solving that problem or need. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I guess we're the same with a. I don't know what's the phrase. It's a difference without a blah blah blah.
Right.
What's the blah blah blah? I can't think of it. It's a
I mean,
okay. Whatever. I'll tell you what it is.
You need a pre-existing relationship to sell something to someone. In other words, if they've gotten on a call with you and they schedule a call, can you close that sale if they have an interest or a need for your products or services?
Yeah. I mean, every strong relationship I've ever built has started from a stranger. I mean, everything's
that's kind of what I was trying to get to eventually.
Well, but here, I guess here's the difference that we have. I think everything's a commodity. Everything's a commodity, and everything's not a commodity. There's very few, very unique things aside from the salesperson. I mean, what's something like a software
stuff? That's give yourself some technology.
Right. Give yourself 25 minutes. That new thing that's come out right now, what is it? Chat GTP or whatever that thing is. What is that thing? Chat RSVP.
Yeah. Like that.
Yeah. Okay. So that, I mean, we're saying it right now, but in 30 minutes, we're going to sound like we're saying, what's that thing called? The internet? I mean, things are going to move so fast. Things get commoditized so bloody quickly. Correct. You can't stand it. So ultimately, it's the relationship.
Easy enough. All right. Let's talk about you have a really unique thought process on, because we talked about this offline, and I think it's important for the public to hear this. Weakness in sales, recruiting, and onboarding.
Yeah.
Talk about the importance of company training. It goes back to the remote versus local thing. Talk about training, belief in products and services, culture. Talk about that. I think it's important.
Yeah, I mean, everybody knows the old phrase that people don't quit their job; they quit their manager, they quit their boss, and then and that is that boss or that manager or that system has a certain culture that there are certain places that keep people forever, and they could get paid more in other places. But it serves their needs for that family kind of feeling in it. Some people like that. And so concentrating, I did something with, I think the stalwart in this in this world is Chick-fil-A. And Chick-fil-A has a certain culture that they have built, which is it's so remarkable, it's almost unbelievable. I was talking to a gentleman who went through a year-long interview process. A year. A year. And within that year, he went on trips with them. They took him on, on an event with Chick-fil-A.
Is this potential like a potential franchisee or licensee, whatever they call it, or is this like for a job in the company?
This was for a job.
Really?
Yes, a job in training. A year. They interview with just about everybody. The CEO, I guess it's the the family members and their children and all that stuff in the same lunchroom, cafeteria with everybody else, picking up your tray. You know who that was? Oh yeah, that's the CEO. That's right. He's right there. I mean, this whole thing, and didn't get the job.
Wow.
After the year, didn't get the job. 3 years later, they called him back. 3 years later. Are you willing to do this? This is the type of, and now he's been there for 10 years. Okay. And
so there is a good story that comes out of it. Okay.
Yeah, they take like the 2,000 or so people within the company, in the corporate center, not the franchisees and all that. And I'll get to that in a second. But the 2,000, they go on a field trip every year. They like kind of rent out cruise ships, 3 or 4 cruise ships, or they'll all go to the Bahamas or Haiti or wherever they want to go.
Okay.
Paid for out of the pockets of the CEOs and owners. It's not a company thing. It's paid for by their personal money.
Okay.
This is the type of investment they make in their people. When they hire people on, even just to work in the place, in the corporate center, it's a 2-week training process, off-site training process on what to say and how to say it and all that stuff. They're crazy with their training. Their franchisees, they open up 100 stores or 100 and some odd single-digit stores a year. 57,000 applicants.
Yeah, I do know one new franchisee. So I don't know if they're called franchisees or licensees technically, but I know one. Yes,
and you know how much it costs?
Well, technically, I think it's nothing, isn't it?
10 grand.
It's like next to nothing because they technically can't. Like, if I recall, and I could be wrong, they can't literally sell it. They don't technically own it to where they can sell it, if I recall correctly.
They don't own the property, but they do pay rent on it and all that stuff. Chick-fil-A builds up. But whatever it is, it's total investment in their people. And because of that, they create something better than happy or satisfied. They create loyalty. And loyalty is the key to it. And so when you're trying to build that culture, you have to ask yourself, what would it take for me to stay here? If somebody were to offer me $50,000 more to leave, what would it take for me to stay here? What do I need to do? And then build that and bring that in. Don't do stupid things, year-end review stupid things, which are like, let's just make something up. Nobody knows what the hell they're doing. It's just, if policies are so stupid that everybody, if you have to say, here it is.
Oh, your sound's not working.
There we go. I got two automated. So if you have to say, when somebody asks you, why are we doing it this way versus this, and you have to say something like, well, that's the policy. That's a stupid policy. That drives people.
I love it.
When you have a stupid thing, just because it's been written down for a stupid thing, you're not going to create loyalty because everybody is going to be walking on eggshells. I mean, what are we doing? Why do we go to the left and not to the right? Oh, that's the policy. But, but what if it's blocked? Then you got to worried about
You make me laugh, and I don't disagree with you in the least.
breaking the rules. It's
We're
crazy.
seeing an epidemic on the recruiting side of, I mean, again, let's stay on sales because that's both of our wheelhouses, right? Salespeople, lots of job movement, lack of term in jobs and in companies. They're not moving. They're not even moving within a single industry. They're literally hopping around all over the place. Experienced sales reps, new sales reps. And yeah, young kids, they got to get their feet wet, and it's going to take a couple, movements to find. But like, I'm just not seeing the trajectory movement within an industry, and some of it's on the employers, some of it's on the salespeople. Like, there is that pressure for them to make that next $1,000, $2,000, $4,000 a month guaranteed money because of cost of living in the United States. So some of it I understand, but I also think it's short-sighted on the employee side, and definitely on the employer side. I see a lack, completely what you said. I see a complete lack of training on what makes their company special and unique.
Yeah.
When I worked at Slazenger Golf USA, Dave Brandon, who I don't even know if he's alive at this point, and a couple of guys are on LinkedIn that used to sell in the company with me, and this is when I was in my late 20s. When you were trained at that company, he had you on a mission. Like, our sales managers, our national sales manager, I remember, I think he's still in the industry, one of the few guys that is, like, and our regional guys, you were on a mission for Dave Brandon and the sales managers and your other sales reps. And we had a competition between the regions against goal and all of that stuff. You were like, to me, you were a soldier in an army.
Yeah.
And we bled that company. We breathed that company. I was on the road with fire breathing out of my mouth to sell for that company for a number of reasons. My personal success and pride, income, but really most importantly, what drove it was I could not let that company and that president down under any circumstances. I couldn't. I had to be successful for him, for my regional, for the national sales manager who took a shot at me. I was the youngest sales rep ever hired in the company's history, and that held actually until it closed, I think, or maybe one other person. I could not let anybody down, not to mention myself. I don't see that anymore. I don't see a desire and a pride as part of the company. And I see it as a two-ended thing. I see too much of that on the employer side, though, in particular. Too little training and culture building like you talked about. I just don't see it.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like the people who would have that pride and drive are just entrepreneurs now, because it's so much easier just to go out on your own and do it.
Maybe that's it. Maybe that's something I hadn't, I mean, obviously thought a little bit about it, but maybe that's a big chunk of it. Like, the real movers and shakers who used to be sales reps now just started their own things because I don't know.
Yeah, well, because it's easier to sell stuff. My daughter's boyfriend plays this stupid little game, like Warhammer or something. I'm not sure what it is, but it was like an online thing. But then they make like game pieces, and then they meet at these halls and all get together and basically play chess. But it's not chess; it's with these. And so he said, "Oh, let me get a 3D printer," and he started making these things. And the kid, earns a boatload making these stuff, going out on his own. He's got, a job that he's ready to go. He's ready to, dish it, whatever, because it's so easy to make money on the side. Copywriters that are working for like companies and, making $4,000 a month, it's working for a company, realize they can make $4,000 a month from 10 different people doing it on the side and freelancing. And so people with that type of drive are going out on their own because of all the different platforms, just to sell their wares and their products and their services.
Yeah, and this is a little off topic, but on that note, we have been talking about people-centric businesses. So companies whose products or services are people-centric. So the people are actually the ones that like do the work that you're actually selling. So contractors and things like that. We're actually seeing them really struggle to hire and keep people to scale their businesses because all the guys that have any gumption are going out and starting their own things. Right. So what they're again, this is not to pick on like everybody or a whole segment of people, but what they're left with is people who have not a ton of drive or a lot of baggage or whatever. And so they're having a really hard time scaling those businesses. And so those mid-market companies or big, small businesses are really struggling to hire, to scale for kind of the same reasons. Like a lot of the guys that are like, have, are in tune with what they would be doing in the job, and have any drive to make money. They're just, at this point, they've just said, I can't make enough money working for you directly or whatever. I'm just going to go start my own thing with my own truck.
Yeah, well, but I agree that it's an issue. But here's the thing: it's always been the issue. It was an all. I'm going to try to remember this. Hold on. It was
I'm going to try to remember.
I think it's something like Price's Law. I don't know if you remember Price's Law, but basically, you will get 50% of your productivity from the square root of your employee base. So if the square root of, let's say you have 10, let's say you have 10 employees, so you'll get approximately 3 is the square root. So you'll get 50% of all your production from 3 people, and the other 7 will give you the other 50%, which doesn't sound like that's kind of fair. But if you have 1,000 employees, that means you basically have 700 people doing what 300 are doing, in terms of productivity. So 700, like, less than competent people. So that's just how it always has been. And I think it's the same thing now, because even really quality people that can produce like crazy, they have other issues going on. They might have a parent in the house or kids or not kids or school or this or that. And so it's for the companies themselves to constantly looking to improve their employee base, build from within when you can, and call. And I think the idea of training is magnified tremendously if you do want to build your company from within, because then as people can move up, which is an easier way to hire. As people move up, people move out, or what have you, and then you can keep hiring, kind of entry level people, train them up, and you have a much more. When you can train people and move them up in your organization,
undoubtedly,
you also create a much more loyal workforce.
So go back to the sales question and remote versus hybrid versus local. Let's just say in office versus remote, right? All things being equal, it's a job that's inside sales. Let's not take territorial sales. Okay. That's different. So go back to the culture breeding, the training, the talent acquisition, and ultimately performance. Do you recruit remote and find the very best talent you can, and people that are really self-driven, or you hope are self-driven, and take a little bit of risk? Or do you want more control over those people and hire local? Maybe your talent level you hire isn't quite as good because you've got a lesser pool of talent, but you have more control over them. Which way do you go, or do you think it depends on the business?
Listen, we're all in. This is a unique situation. This is a new world that we're living in. And past, it's going to take 10 years to really say what was good and what wasn't good and all that. But where I am, as a person who is a social type of creature, I don't know how you build a strong culture in the sales department if you're not all getting together regularly. And I'm a big fan of remote stand-up meetings and things like that, doing that regularly. But you got to get together with your peeps, and you got to drink some beers together, metaphorically. And if you're not going to go to a lot of conventions together, you're going to have to. If you're saving the money by not having the office space, spend the dang money to go out on a lot of trips, a lot of get-togethers, and a lot of team meetings, and a lot of culture building. By the way, I'm talking. Well, let me finish it. This is important. Yeah. I'm talking specifically about the sales department.
Right.
I think the traditional, accounting stuff and technology stuff and all that stuff, all that can be outsourced. The salespeople are social creatures. They need to get together.
You don't mean just outsourced. You mean that they can all be remote?
They could all be remote.
Okay. Yeah. So solutions my clients have come up with, I thought you would find this interesting. And I had one more topic I wanted to cover is hiring remote. They pay them a little bit less than guaranteed money. They have them come in for training for a long time, 3 to 4 weeks, get to go home on the weekends, to get that culture and really bring it in, right? But they want the advantage of recruiting the nationwide pool because they want the best talent they can get. One solution that a client came up with. Another one, and I'm seeing this more, in the more auto sales, kind of like daily sales meeting stuff, I am seeing more companies saying we've lost contact with our salespeople. We've lost the culture a little bit. If we're going to let them be remote, we need them on a meeting every day. We need to get them in the morning every day. We got to fire them up. We got to get them ready to go, right? Get them ready to go fight. I'm seeing some of that. And I'm seeing sales managers. I think there was a period there with COVID where everybody got over hyper scheduled and were unavailable for their team. And I am seeing that now their boss is saying, look, you need to be available for your people more. You got to block off time for your people every day sometime. Just like like you impress everybody. You're just amazing that you do some cold calling every day, right? Historically, and you block it off. I'm hearing now companies starting to move in that direction, blocking off time for their people.
Yeah. Well, I think the sales manager role has shifted to more of a coaching role. I'm not saying the sales managers have shifted to more coaching. I'm saying the role is because with all the technology and all the dashboards that are out there right now, hell, anybody could read a dashboard. The VP of sales, anybody could read that. You don't need a manager to say, okay, guys, this is what's happening. I mean, anybody can see what's going on.
Anybody can read the numbers, right? Agreed.
Yeah. And so the manager needs to be doing more ride-alongs, doing more hanging. Actually, one of our clients, I don't normally do this, but I went with them today on a ride-along for their product that they're putting in bathrooms. 5 bathrooms in this $3 million house. And so it was kind of fun, just price conditioning and the whole thing. And listen, this is going to be anywhere between 100 and 150 grand, depending on the stuff in there. Is that more or less than you were hoping for? But anyway, so it's much more of a coaching position right now. So that is their job. If they're not available for their people, they're not going to be there very long.
Okay. Yeah, I think. And I want to finish up with kind of almost touching back on something to go back to the beginning of the conversation, but like I'm hearing different things from different.
You companies. Remember the beginning of this conversation?
Sure, of course.
You're a better man than I.
Well, because it's hard to forget the Deej. So
well, here's the thing: you kept saying, "Oh, just to get back on track." You're attempting to keep me on track.
So I do have clients doing different things to solve the problem of sales and employee being disconnected. So whether they're hiring local and letting them be remote or hybrid, or they're fully remote people, whatever it is, we're seeing more companies saying, hey, CEOs are saying, we need our people to have more of our culture. We need to have these people tighter in, and they're seeing that, like they understand their own problems in mid-size and enterprise level companies. I'm seeing that. Had a guy come to me for lead gen help. But original part of the conversation, it goes back kind of the beginning of the thing. And the problem within companies is he said that his boss told him we need to hit X sales. We get Y sales per salesperson. Therefore, we need to add this many salespeople in 2023. And so one of the VPs and I were talking on a call, and he goes, does that sound kind of weird to you? Like, should we just do more marketing and generate more leads? Maybe, like, would that help first? And he was genuinely asking me the question, and it comes to my big final question is, and this is one of my big consulting things when I work with companies. How many salespeople do you need? Because my big contention right now is because cold calling is difficult. Generating leads with outbound with BDRs is very, very hard. DM conversations per day are 3 to 6 a day. You can't have $90,000 salespeople making cold calls 75% of the time. Doesn't make any sense mathematically. You must drive more inbound leads. So I'm working with a client. They've got 7, 8 salespeople, and they're account managers, account executives. And I asked the CEO, the owner, primary owner, I was like, how many of those salespeople have full books of business? And he said 2. And I said, okay. Of the other 6, how far along are they to a full book of business? This is in promotional and corporate gift. And he said, a couple of them are maybe close to halfway, and the rest are 10% to 25%. I said, and you pay all of those people guaranteed base salaries, right? To the tune of about $90,000 a year on average, 85, something like that. And he said, yes. And I said, you have too many salespeople. Number one problem I see right there is you got too many salespeople. In other words, you've got in the modern era, you can't spend 90 grand for those people to sit there and cold call and prospect.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, your number of salespeople, you should have one salesperson that doesn't have a full schedule or a full book of business to deal with. One, in my opinion. Or if it's a big company, a small percentage. You've got to be driving inbound leads and doing webinars, educational things, BDRs, prospecting, but not your salespeople. You can't have $100,000 salespeople sitting there paying all these salaries, sitting there and doing cold calls, talking to 4 people a day. It just doesn't make sense. Your take.
Well, you asked me the question, but then you just gave me the answer.
Well, okay. I wanted to lead on that one.
That's the answer to that question is, how many salespeople do you need? Not many.
Yeah. Well, that's not entirely true. I have
just not many. But, yes, it all depends on your lead flow. It all depends on your lead flow. You know, if you're doing it, like you say, with the there are companies that can't afford, you know, that $90,000 salesperson, and what they want instead is somebody to do both. They want the impossible. You know, they want somebody who's a good salesperson, doesn't require a large base salary, and is comfortable prospecting.
No. But in all seriousness, for the guys that are willing to invest the money, like, and this is, I think, at the crux of like most of my consulting work is actually they come to me with the problem of they want more sales, right? But the 2 problems they have to me are, number one, lead generation, lead flow, right? So they need marketing help more than they need sales help on the front end. And then on the other side of that is they've got all this investment in salespeople without giving them leads. And I'm like, so you're spending all of this money over here, and I want you to take this money, as much as I want those people employed, and I'm not trying to get anybody fired, you got to take that money and I need it put over here. I need you marketing to drive leads. And you got one salesperson. Every single one of those salespeople either has to have a book of business and customer base they're calling on to sell more to, or if they're hunter sales, like one call closed and done or whatever, like software, those kinds of things, I want those guys to have a full schedule. If they don't have a full schedule, then you're doing something wrong. They should not be cold calling. You've got to be marketing to give them a full schedule.
You know, obviously businesses are different, products are different, or you know what you're doing there. But yeah, if you're talking about, you know, IT sales, obviously you want to do it that way. But you know, in your promotional sales, there's probably some room for an outside sales guy to go out there and just be a lead generator and just going out, you know, an old school type of.
I'm not saying there's not room for that. I'm saying that you've got to be generating leads in order to justify a $90,000 base salary. Again, the exception for me is route-based or territorial sales reps for a company that has a very limited target audience. Like my one client that's based out of Germany, they have however many sales reps, right? Their sales reps cover territories. Their prospects, there's less than 1,000 per salesperson. They have to cold call and go reach those people, just like I did in the golf business. I only had 500 golf courses to work with, right? Or 800, whatever it was. I have to go out and visit every golf course. I got to call them. And if they don't want to answer the phone or set an appointment with me, I'm going to walk in the door anyway, right? That's a different thing. But I am talking about the vast kind of stuff that I deal with a lot from a consulting standpoint. I've got these companies that have these bevy of salespeople and investment in all these sales teams, and they've got like no marketing going on or very, very little. And they're like giving a lead a day to each sales rep. That's all they have. And I'm like, each salesperson, you got to fill their schedule before you go by investing in 6 more sales reps. Like,
so what do you suggest that they do?
Got to market. I mean, it depends on B2B or B2C, obviously, but on the B2B side, which we both do more of, and I deal with B2C as well. In B2B, I want, you know, email always works for me, but I love the webinar. If you can educate people and you can get them on webinars with free information, my one digital agency client who's pretty decent sized, who does that, knocks it out of the park. He teaches people exactly. They teach people how to run Google Ads. They teach people how to do SEO, how to do on-page SEO, how to do off-page, how to do content building. They tell people exactly what to do because they know that people won't do it themselves anyway. They just hire them.
Perfect. And they do weekly webinars?
No, I think they do them about once a month.
Very cool. Yeah, that's a great way. That's a great way to get business and get their
For
leads.
sure.
Can you believe we've been on talking here for 49 minutes and 18
Sorry,
seconds?
I kept you too long.
Yeah, that's a all right. So